Hi, fellow crafters. Today we're going to create a special card. This card is for a super amazing friend of mine. Her name is Alex. She one of those kind that's, you can't replace them. So I want to make her a special birthday card, and we're going to use this beautiful stamp. It's a full stamp, and it will create some amazing looks just by using some design paper. So let's get to it.
To start off with, we're going to use this design paper, and I wanted to just come through it with you. There's 2 pages of each of these beautiful colors. It's going to be really hard to decide which one to use for this beautiful full stamp. But you can see there's lots of like rainbow ones, thicker. This one's kind of a nice masculine one. We'll keep that for another card. And I think I'm going to use these top 2. I like the pink and the purple, and I think I'll get a lot of colors out of that. And we will put the pages on here. I like the purple and the pink the most, so I'm going to see if I can get the most out of those 2 colors. So I will take the stamp apart and then just see where I want that to go. Take my stamp grip pad, push that paper down, and now with the actual stamp itself, I decided to put it in the corner because I want all that pink and purple. And then I'm going to be using some VersaFine Black Onyx ink because I'll be embossing this later on. And so this is a perfect ink. It's not only fine, so it'll have lots of the detail of this stamp, but it'll also be nice for the embossing. It stays wet for a really long time. So I make sure I get that all over. And I use the stamp press because if it doesn't work the first time, especially with these large stamps, sometimes you just can't get the pressure everywhere you need them. I'm using my little stamp press tool, but I didn't even get it close, so I'll re-ink it and we'll try it again. And the nice thing is it's in the same spot, so it won't cause us any problems. And then we will just press it again and see what we get. You can see I'm using 2 hands to make sure that I get good pressure on here so that we have a better image, and we do have a much better image. Now I'm going to do this on multiple sheets because I haven't quite decided what I want to do with this. I can't decide if I want to layer these or if I want to use different ones in different parts of the card. As I ink these up, you'll see that I get better at this and I push a little bit harder. This one I'm going to get in the first try. And as we get through this, you'll see that while I did ink these onto 3 sheets, there is another technique where if you have nesting dies, which I'll show you those in a little bit, you can actually use 1 sheet of paper and just cut them all, and then you can put them on a different color background paper, and that will work very similar to what I'm doing here, and it would save you all of this design paper. But because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I decided I wanted to create 3 of these. I used a different sheet, but I do have 3 of them. And now I just spritz this down with a little bit of water, and this VersaFine this ink is really easy to get off, so just wanted to show you that. Okay, now I have 3 of these, and we need to just trim them down to where the part where the stamp didn't hit it. So they'll all be about the same size. And I do think I'm going to do some nesting of this beautiful stamp set. And so one will look just a little bit different than the other because it has a little orange in it, but you won't be able to tell once we put them all together. Okay, now I'm going to use some embossing powder. This is just clear embossing powder. And I will emboss this with a heating tool. I'll emboss this off screen because my plug is far away from my desk. I put the embossing powder back in because I just like to be able to pour it. And I did that for all 3 sheets. So all of them are embossed and dried. And so now I'm deciding which of my nesting die sets I want to use. I kind of like this one with the funky edges just because this flower is so beautiful. I think the square ones would just not do it justice. And it has a lot of them, so I can use different backgrounds. So I'm going to use some removable tape and add that and use my Off Nova die cutting and embossing machine. I'll set up the plates for it, and then we'll run this through the die cutting machine 2 times. I always go forward and backward. and it came out perfect. I just love this stamp set. It is absolutely gorgeous. Now I'm going to use black. Because I use black ink, I'm going to use this as the background paper for each of the die cuts. So this one is just slightly larger than the one I just cut. And you'll see here I just try to match them up as best I can. It doesn't really matter because you won't see much of them once they're kind of nestled on top of each other, but again, trying to make the most of that pink and purple, which are my favorite colors in this design paper. We'll get another one. This time I used the same black piece of paper that I die cut out because you won't see the middle. So if you can save some paper, that's a great way to do it. And so this one will be the smallest black background piece. And then for the last of the smallest of the die cuts, I did the same thing. I used the design paper. Since you won't see the middle, I'm going to die cut out of that middle of that design paper. And you'll see when I stack them all together what I'm talking about here. Okay, so here's the card base. And then you'll see I'm going to assemble each one just so I can see what it's going to look like. I quickly realize I don't have the largest one, so I'm going to die cut that out and then reassemble it. Okay, I cut that out off screen. Now we'll reassemble it again. And this is where you can see, you're not going to see that hole in the middle because you have the next size up covering it. So it's really pretty, and with a small sentiment, I think it'll look okay, but I'm starting to doubt whether or not I want to use all 3 of the layers, really 6 layers, but 3 of the die sets. So I'm just making a few pencil marks. I've decided to add some purple paper behind the design paper. So I just want to cut that down so there's a nice even border around the card base. I love that purple color. So now we'll get back to reassembling now that I've got all the pieces. And I'm going to start to glue this to the purple. And then, so I'm going to attach the black pieces with glue, my Barely Art Precision Glue, and then I'm going to do the other ones with foam tape so that they pop up a little bit. I showed you my little sticky scissors. I try and use these scissors only for cutting sticky stuff. So there's a little tag on it to remind myself to use these instead of my nicer scissors. They're titanium, so they don't stay sticky. It's really easy to wipe them off. Okay, and here's where I start to really doubt. I just think that is so gorgeous, and then I put that third one on there and I think it just takes too much away from the flower. I'm still going to pop it up with some foam tape until I decide, but I'm really starting to doubt whether or not I want all 3 layers here. What would you guys have done? I think it's just with the sentiments, I think it's really going to cause you to not be able to see that beautiful flower, especially the center of the flower. So again, I'm going to glue on the black parts and pop up with foam tape the design paper. I was almost going to pop that little one in there, but we've got to stick to the plan and put the medium-sized one in there. And I think that just looks gorgeous all by itself. I don't think I want that last one on there. While I'm deciding, I always go on to something else, and so I'm going to cut out a happy birthday sentiment. These are just some that I printed myself on a printer in different fonts instead of paying for someone else to do that for me. And I am going to stamp a little sentiment that I'm also going to put on the front. And I used Memento ink. It's just a quick drying, beautiful ink pad that just has a lot of detail, and it never gives too much ink, it never rocks. It's just a really good ink pad. Then I'm going to pop this happy birthday onto some of that purple paper. The sentiment, the second sentiment here says, "Your friendship means everything." And her friendship certainly does. I decided to fussy cut this out instead of keeping it in that kind of square rectangle looking shape it was before. Sometimes if I have too many things that are straight, I don't know, it does something to me. I guess the creative side of me doesn't like to have too many straight edges. So I fussy cut that out, and then I'm trying to decide where I want to put these things, and I decide I want to pop that onto some of that design paper. So it'll look a little bit different from the happy birthday sentiment, but I think that's okay. I just love this paper so much and that stamp so much that I just want to use as much of it as I can. So I fussy cut this out, and then I'm going to also put some borders behind it. So I've put it on the purple. This is going to definitely be a card that I'm going to need to put some extra postage on and bring it to the post office, because with all of this cardstock I'm using, it's definitely going to be overweight and it's going to be too thick, but she's definitely worth it. So I put that on some black paper. This one I'm fussy cutting out of the purple and keeping the border amount just really, really thin. I just wanted to have just a little bit more dimension. And then I'm going to pop it on the black as well. Again, it's going to give it some dimension, and it just kind of all ties it all together. And so I think that will look pretty good. I'm not quite sure where I want to put things. So again, if I don't know what I'm going to do, I move on to something else. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I've decided I don't like the sharp edges of this purple paper, so I start to just fussy cut and make my own design out of it that kind of matches the design behind it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to decide where I think I'm going to want my sentiments. So if you guys run into a kind of a brain fart where you don't know where things are going to go, what do you do? Do you move on to something else, or do you, like I do, or do you just move forward and decide what you're going to do? For me, I always have to move on to something else and then come back. Like I came back and it's exactly where I want it to be. You just need to sometimes walk away. All right. I like the way that looks, and the flower is really nice and visible, so I didn't cover up much of that flower. And I'll go on this white card base, but first, I want to make sure I tie in the inside of the card to the outside of the card. If you've seen my other videos, you know that this is something that I do almost in every card. And I like to do this before I attach my card front to the card base, because sometimes if this part doesn't work out, especially the stamping, so stamping for me is kind of the part of these cards that I mess up the most. It's good for me if I kind of make the inside of the card and see how that goes and then assemble my card front, because you usually spend the most time on your card front, so you don't want that to already be assembled if you have to do something different on the inside. So I was able to use each of the colors for each of the corners, and it looks kind of messy and similar to what I did on the card front. Now I'm going to try and find a sentiment for the inside of the card, because I think I'm going to use that design paper and use it on the inside. So I'm going to decide on that largest sentiment. And then I think I'm going to pop one on the top too. There were so many awesome sentiments and they all pertain to her, so I'm just going to use them all. This one is a really nice kind of birthday sentiment. Today's all about you and the wonderful things you've done and the wonderful person you are, that kind of a sentiment. And then I'm going to put the other sentiment, which says friends, a small word for one of life's necessities. I'm going to pop that onto some purple cardstock. I'm going to use my large blade scissors first, and then I'm going to fussy cut it out with my little scissors. They're both Tim Holtz scissors, but I find that I can fussy cut better with the small ones, but I definitely need the long bladed scissors to make those sharp lines. Okay, so what do you guys think? I kind of like that piece that I didn't use on the front on the inside, but I guess I'm going to add another layer here. So we'll add a layer of purple, and I'll fussy cut that out real quick. Again, you want to move the paper and not the scissors, and that's a great way to fussy cut, and it works out really well. So we'll glue all this together, and then I'll add the sentiment to the top. And I really liked how that inside of that card came. Now I'm going to use my bone folder just to make that seem real crisp, and then we're going to add card front back to the card base now that the inside worked perfectly. And there we go. I like that, but it definitely needs some bling. Alright, so I took out some gem embellishments, and of course I went with the one with all the colors because there's so many colors in this card front. We need lots of colors. So I started to just add them, one each color. Luckily they kind of, all the colors match the color in the design paper. I added some of the smaller ones to the sentiments, but then I didn't like it. I don't like the ones in the corner, so I'm gonna pull those off. Luckily they're easy to pull off and I didn't push them down too hard. And I'm going to change them with these flower type gem embellishments. And I'm just going to glue them down. I don't know why I didn't like the other ones, but It just seemed too simple for such a jazzy kind of card. And she needs some glamorous flowers as well, so I think that I like this a lot better. Alright, so what do you think? If you liked this video and found value in it, please click the like button. Also, I create content weekly. Subscribe and hit the notification button, and you'll be notified of when I create new content. I also create content about these beautiful dogs and how to keep them happy and healthy. And when it gets warmer out, we'll also be doing some RV travel content as well. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video coming later this week. See you then.